dudes. Welcome to Awoken Dudes. Today on the podcast, I had the distinct pleasure of sitting down with my friend, YouTuber, ultra-marathoner, plant-based endurance athlete, Steven. He's better known as Ultra Trail Steven across every social media platform. I'm just going to read a few of his accolades here. He said, I don't really want to brag about myself, but dear Lord, if I had this kind of credentials, I definitely would brag about myself. He won his first ultra marathon in 2018, which you'll soon find out was about a month and a half after he went completely 100% plant-based. In 2018, he won the 24-hour Ozone Endurance Challenge. He's completed numerous mountain 100Ks, and he won the Elise Enduro Last Man Standing event in 2019. He's a two-time Barkley Fall Classic 50K finisher, and in 2020 completed the No Business 100-mile trail race. This race was crazy. I watched some updates on his Instagram and watched the video that came out. At mile 18, he rolled his ankle. Mile 18, with 82 miles left, he rolled his ankle, but he did not stop. He finished the entire race. After I saw that, I was like, I am going to follow this man for the rest of my life as long as he keeps blessing us with his wonderful content. He also has 4 children, a wonderful, amazing wife who is also an ultra runner. And I think you should check out his YouTube channel if you're into running as much as I am, especially trail running. This is a shorter talk, and all of these plant-based conversations I'm having with Pat, and then I've got one coming out with a guy named Cole Hastings, and then Steven, all of these are going to be available long form on this channel. But after Cole's talk, I will tell you about how you can watch the 3 of them inside of a vegan doc piece that I am making for my main channel. But for the time being, sit back and enjoy this 18 minutes I spent with Steven. It was truly fascinating and life-changing, and if you're curious at all about going plant-based and you're an athlete, this is a conversation worth listening to. Thanks, friends, for being here. Love your face. How long have you been full-on plant-based?
I have been full plant-based since January 2020. So about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half.
Okay. What inspired that decision?
It was my wife, honestly. She had started a Daniel fast, if you're familiar with that, in 2020. And she wanted to eat more healthy and was trying to get me on board. And I was completely opposed to it, like just did not want to do it at all because I was the typical guy, like, I eat meat, you know? I mean, like, no, I want my steak, I want my bacon. That's what I do. But then she got me to watch the Game Changers documentary on Netflix. And I watched that, and there was some compelling evidence in there that it can have a really good impact on your physical performance and recovery. So I decided to give it a shot and see if it actually did have any merit to it. And if so, I would continue it. And I guess that's pretty much what inspired me. You know, my wife got me interested, and then the video kind of sold it to me.
Yeah. There's this vegan news network that I follow, and this guy was kind of giving this girl a hard time who is like an ancestral eater and shares a lot of stuff about how we have to have meat and how eating organs is proven to like cure all these diseases in people. I'm not denying that has not worked before, but what I think is interesting is that some of the arguments I hear from people when you tell them what you just said, they're like, you're just brainwashed by people. It's like, well, you're also probably brainwashed by the meat industry. Like, I think the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
So I want to ask myself too, personally. I was like a big, like, I think the last meal I ate before going plant-based was literally this like super extra large like pizza for a family of 6, all of the meats, and then like 18 chicken wings. So like, I feel you on that. How quickly after switching to plant-based did you notice a change, if you noticed any at all?
So I didn't go full plant-based until probably 3 weeks into January. So it was somewhere around like the 25th of the month. And then
January of 2020?
Yeah, 2020.
Sorry to interrupt.
2020, yeah.
Okay.
And then in February, so February 29th, so about a month later, I ran my first ultra marathon as a plant-based runner. I'd run many more before that, but this was the first one after switching plant-based. And I actually was lucky enough to win that ultra. It was a last man standing event. And I remember after that event, this had like 11,000 feet of elevation gain. So it was a pretty good event, and my legs would have been shot. But I remember after the race talking to my wife and going like, this is crazy. Like, I don't feel that tired. Like, my legs are okay, like 2 days later. And I really attribute that to the plant-based diet and the lower inflammation and just the eating healthy throughout the event and after in my recovery. So I think that was the first time where I was like, okay, this might actually be true. This might be good.
Dude, like literally full on goosebumps. I'm going through this thing where like I know a lot of like things that I say on like online are like cliche and like the believe in yourself and like small daily changes, but it's so true. And when you put it into like application, like it feels so good. So I'm just gonna let that feeling go. But dude, full goosebumps because I can almost put myself in your shoes, pun intended. Like thinking, what is this? Because I started to feel superhuman pretty quickly. And, I don't know if that's just like believing in myself or motivation or whatever. So I want to ask, just to try to be objective. You said you went plant-based, full on plant-based. Then 3 weeks later, you ran the ultra that you won,
Yeah.
correct?
It was about a month later, but yeah.
What? Okay. Did you implement any kind of stretching, yoga? Were you maybe doing a different kind of workout in the month before, month leading up to the ultra that you won, or what looked different other than the plant-based aspect?
Nothing, honestly. Like, I mean,
Nothing?
I've been doing yoga, working out for years. It's just part of my natural process of training. I didn't change anything, nothing at all except for the diet. That was the only thing.
It is absolutely insane. Man, it's so crazy. Do you have any idea of what your macros look like?
No,
I'm not.
I don't
Okay.
track it. Like, I know I'm involved in some plant-based or vegan athlete forums on Facebook and different groups, and they're all talking about macros and tracking all these things. I haven't tracked a single macro or micronutrient the entire time I've been doing it. I guess go by what I feel my body needs, and that's it.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm going to say this just to have it on record so I can remind myself to ask you later, but I want to get some of those Facebook groups if they're public,
Yeah.
and I'll link those in the show
Okay.
notes. When you tell people you're vegan, which I imagine you do, because if you're a runner and a vegan, you probably talk about that all the time to anybody that'll listen. What are some of the biggest arguments you hear, and do you have answers to people when they give you these like basic arguments?
Yeah, I don't really. I know that's like a big thing on the internet with memes is like, oh, if you don't, how do you know somebody's vegan? And don't worry, they'll tell you. I like to think I'm not like that. I was actually on the Adventure Jogger podcast after the No Business 100 last year, and we got through like 40 minutes of the podcast recording it, and it came up about my diet, and I told him, he was like, whoa, he's like, stop. I had no clue you were plant-based because you didn't like tell me right from the start. Like that's not right. But yeah, I get the typical, how do you get enough protein? You're not eating meat. Aren't your, is your body okay? And I think there's science out there to support either side of the argument, obviously, depending on who's doing the study. But in that Game Changers documentary, then also in the No Meat Athlete books and their online community, they talk about protein needs in a performer's body or an athlete's body, and the actual amount of protein that your body needs is far less than what people thought at one point. You get bodybuilders out there that would eat 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight, so they might be taking in 300, 350, 370 grams of protein a day if they're heavy lifting, which is just absurd. And there's evidence out there showing that that's not needed. I mean, there's weightlifters, there's boxers, there's all sorts of these big time lifting people that are plant-based now and vegan and not having near as much protein and still doing as good, if not even better, in their lifting. So I think there's science that supports everything, and that's what I tell people is like, in my research I've found that I don't need as much protein as was once thought. So I just kind of tell people that, and that if they do their research, I'm sure they'll probably find something similar to that.
Right. Are there any downsides
that you found so far with being plant-based? It can be anything from the ethics to these conversations to you miss a certain food, but are there any downsides?
When I first made the transition, I think you actually kind of went through this a little bit too. We kind of joked about it on Instagram, but when you first make the transition from a standard American diet to plant-based or vegan, your body does go through changes. So obviously there's going to be some changes in the way your body handles the influx of maybe more vegetables or maybe more legumes or greens or whatever it is. And so, for lack of better words, I mean, your bowels go through a transition as well for probably a good.
I'll say what Steve's trying to say. You're gonna fart a lot.
Yeah, well, not just that, but yes, yeah, you go through a big change for a while, and it honestly took probably 2 months before that went or stopped, and it became more normal, more regulated, at least for me. But other than that. I had a couple of cravings when I first switched where I was like, oh man, I would really, want some bacon. But now, honestly, like if I see bacon cooking or if I cook a hamburger for somebody, if we have somebody over that eats meat and, they want a hamburger, and I'm cooking it on my grill and I see the fat oozing out of it and the grease, it just almost turns my stomach and makes me think it's so gross. So I have no cravings anymore. I really can't think of any negatives whatsoever. I mean, even ice cream is awesome now. They make really good plant-based vegan ice cream.
Yeah, this truly is the best time. I was vegetarian and I would dabble in veganism, and I did that for 4 or 5 years from like age 16 to 20, 21. And oh man, Morningstar Farm or like Boca Burger was like the best, and that was not very good.
Yeah.
You have kids.
Yes.
How many, you have two children?
Four kids, yep.
That is, I thought you had half of what you do. That's awesome. How do you incorporate veganism into their diet? What does that look like with you guys cooking for children? Since, for me anyways, a point of contention, because one, both of our kids don't live with us all the time. And also I went from being the meat lovers pizza guy and chicken wings to being plant-based like 4 months ago at this point. So definitely, like, I don't restrict my kids. What does that look like for you guys?
So for us, when we switched, we just went full on 100% switch, the entire family. We've always been the type of people that, whenever we cook dinner for our kids, even before we were plant-based, it was whatever we're having for dinner is what they're having for dinner. And if they're hungry, that's what they're going to eat. We weren't the type to make them chicken nuggets or make them pizza while we're having something else that may not look as appetizing to them. So for us, it's gone pretty well with the transition. There is obviously some pushback on some dishes. They don't like eggplant, they don't like peppers and things like that. But for the most part, I wouldn't say for them. I mean, they have been plant-based the entire time as well. But there have been occasions where they may have had. We'll let them have a cookie that might have some egg in it. If somebody else has cooked, or we're at somebody's house and they have eggs, not eggs, cookies. But for us, me, I don't eat anything anymore, even if it has like a half of an egg white in it. I just stay away from it. But, I guess we're a little more lax with the kids, but still, I'd say darn near 100%, 99.9% of the time, it's plant-based for them as well.
That's awesome. If you guys go to a restaurant, for example, and it's somewhere where the kids can pick for themselves, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, we always search online ahead of time to find out if they offer plant-based food or vegan options. But then, it's the same thing. We make them order a vegan option, which is fine because, usually we don't go to places that are going to be real, bougie, where it's like, oh, they're getting some sort of, I don't know, I can't even think of a crazy dish, but we know that we find something that they're going to like if we're going to go to a restaurant, like, whether that's a burrito or a plant-based Beyond Burger or whatever it is. So we try to find something that they will like, so it's not going to be too disruptive or or any real pushback.
That's the beauty, I think, of having. There's a lot of benefits to having a family unit where you like started the family and you've stayed together the whole time.
Yeah,
and I think that's just one of them. For me, I'm not even trying to engage in that fight. I just know that they're eating plant-based most of the time, especially because they're at home and they eat with us, and we've never been like you can be a chicken nugget and mac and cheese every day kid because that's what kids eat, you know, kind of
Yeah.
family. Yeah, dude, honestly, personally, my biggest regret is not being vegan and taking the plunge sooner because I have had that pushback with my family a little bit. So that's awesome that you guys, you know, encourage that in your children and maybe force them to do it. But
Yeah, I remember the podcast you did with Alexis about going vegan. That was good. That was funny.
yeah, she's like, you better. Maybe I'll just. Oh man, what does and we'll wrap this up because I wanted to keep this under 20 minutes. What does fueling look like for you at races? Like, do you have to always bring your own food? Because I've started I'm a maniac, and I've started looking into doing longer races, and one of the things I keep thinking about is fueling stations. Am I gonna have to bring all my own food? Am I gonna have to prepackage everything? What does that look like going into a race?
Yeah, it's definitely something you got to be aware of because, I mean, most aid stations, they may have a couple of things that are vegan, you know, prepackaged granola bar, or a lot of aid stations, if it's a winter or a cool ultra, they'll have a vegan or a vegetable broth instead of a regular, you know, beef broth. So that's a big plus. But yeah, there's definitely been a number of ultra marathons where I've had to pack my own food, and you know, I make some plant-based energy gels that I take as well, or use Spring or Huma energy gels that are vegan or plant-based because they do still use honey, which is fine with me. I still eat honey. That's why I say I'm plant-based and not vegan. But yeah, that definitely takes some research ahead of time, trying to find out what the aid stations are going to offer, you know, how much, you know, I need to supplement with my own nutrition. But for me, if it's a 50K, I pretty much rely on, you know, gels that are plant-based or vegan. Maybe a little bit of solid food, like a bag of potato chips, which ultra marathons always have that. But if it's a longer race, like a 100-miler, you know, that's going to be more substantial food. So I'll need some, you know, peanut butter and jellies, which aid stations always have. Like I said, the chips, maybe some oranges, potatoes, things like that, which is usually very easy to find at an ultra. So it's becoming more and more widely accepted, and more races are offering vegan or plant-based options. There's actually a race coming up in California in November that's going to be the first 100% plant-based ultra marathon, meaning not like participants have to be vegan. They can be whatever they want, but all the aid stations are going to have plant-based options. Afterwards, the after party food trucks or food available is going to be plant-based. So that's going to be really cool to have that in our sport.
Awesome. Is it 100% plant-based?
Yeah, that's
the food they're providing.
That's the way I understand it. Is that everything is going to be 100% plant-based.
That's awesome. I love to see
Yeah.
these dirty carnivores. Well, the power of the internet is wonderful. If you're here and you're listening still, thank you so much. I met Steven through my adventures into the online realm, and I encourage you to go and find your tribe as well. Steven, before we get out of here, I would love if you told me and anyone listening to this where they can find you, and maybe a posting schedule, because I know you went down from doing daily, I think, to 3 times a week, but you could tell them better than me. Where can they find you, and when are you posting?
Yeah, well, primarily I'm on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel, Ultra Trail Steven. I'm wearing the shirt right now, but
I'm wearing the hat.
Oh yeah, awesome, nice. So am I. My YouTube schedule is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I post at 8 a.m. Central Time, so that's 9 a.m. Eastern for everybody, and that's every week. And then on Instagram, Ultra Trail Steven as well. You can find me there. I post lots there throughout the week, pretty much every day, something here or there running related. And that's pretty much it. I am on Facebook. I just pretty much use that to share my running videos as well from YouTube, and that's just my name, Steven Kornhaus, there, but primarily YouTube.
Awesome. And I'll have show notes to Steven's channel. I'll have a show note to I'll definitely put the most practical and one of my favorite videos of yours down in the description, and I'll get the Facebook groups link down below from Steven as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.